I mean, Oscar was incredible, and he's probably the second. Well, there's no probably. He's the second greatest point guard after Magic.
So you have Oscar. Well, obviously, you have Oscar above Isaiah, above John Stockton, above CP. So basically, you just got him number 2 right behind Magic.
Oh yeah, I don't even. We talked about this once a while back. Stockton's not even in that discussion.
Hey! All time
because
steals. Come on,
that's fine.
Literally made Carmelo.
No, I think Carmelo made Stockton.
We ain't doing this right now. We ain't doing it.
You know, because Stockton was not as good as Isaiah Thomas. Period.
Excuse me. So you have Isaiah Thomas above John Stockton?
100%.
All right, what's going on, everybody? My name is Shawn Vaughn, and welcome to Champions Material. As always, you know I'm glad to be here. So today we're going to be talking hoops, man. We're going to talk about the very best to ever do it, the top 10 all-time NBA. I'll give you mine, and today's guest will also definitely give you his. And we're here all about what he's been cooking up with his project on the back half, so I'm looking forward to that, and so should you. So let's go. From StayCoppinKicks, my guy, ThatDudeCurtis. Welcome back to Champions Material, my man. Appreciate you coming through.
What's up, brother? I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So let's go ahead and just get right to it. All right. So now this was interesting because back in season 1, we was able to chop it up, and we were really speaking to LeBron. And after that, brother went through what was a very difficult situation. Basically with the shutdown due to COVID, which is, what we're all dealing with. But the NBA decided to crank it back up, and so did the Lakers. And LeBron was not to be denied. He went down to the bubble, got his 4th championship, and we talked about that. And it really spoke to where LeBron was really on his way towards as far as from a historical level, right? So that's what we were really talking about. And then it kind of indirectly, really spoke. It got to a conversation about where does he rank among the NBA's best? And then who are the NBA's best? So we're going to start right there, right? So I kicked out my top 10. And I'm going to go ahead and just get it started right now. And you let me know where I'm right. And I know you're going to let me know where I'm wrong. All right. So just to refresh everybody who didn't catch that episode, or it has been a while, even if you did. So my top 10 in this direct order: Jordan, LeBron, Kareem, and by the way, you see the shirt. That's not even. We got to call that out. It's a dope shirt. So yeah, man, you see my man with the Kareem with the cap shirt. So I've got him number 3. I've got Magic Johnson, Irvin 4, the great Bill Russell 5, Kobe, rest in peace, Mamba, got him 6. Wilt Chamberlain averaged 50 and 25 for a season. I don't care what era it was. I got him 7. Larry Bird, up until Steph Curry, the sharpest shooter the game has ever seen, in number 8. I've got Akeem, the Dream, Olajuwon at 9, and the big fundamental, Tim Duncan, 5-time NBA champion at 10. That dude, Curtis, tell me where I'm right, and definitely, I don't know how you could, but tell me where I'm wrong, man. What you think? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, here's the thing, man. We talked about this briefly before.
Uh-huh.
When it comes to the top 10, man, we're really splitting hairs. Like, all these guys are great. 4,500 people have played in the NBA?
Yes.
And we're talking about the 10 best. That is a ridiculously low percent of the players who have played in the league. So no matter where we put them at, a lot of times it comes down to splitting hairs. Now, we got a lot of the same guys up there. I think there's maybe 1 or 2 differences, which I know you know one of them.
Uh-huh.
And the slots are a little different in some places.
Okay, all right.
So for me, when I talk about the greatest ever, I don't look at just the person's talent. I have to look at what their career achievements were. And the reason why I do that is because if you think about it like this, if you were to take if you would take those 4,500 players,
right,
and you line them up against the wall, and you say we're picking teams.
Mm-hmm.
There's a strong argument that a guy like Kevin Durant could be your first pick.
Okay, wait a minute. So time out. I was going primarily on two things: them as individual ball players and team accomplishment. But what you're saying is, I think one element that you introduced and that I may not necessarily have thought of is, okay, if you're picking a team, it's not just their individual games, but how would they play together? Is that where you're going with this?
That's part of it. So like I said, I look at individual talent because that matters.
Right.
I look at individual accomplishments because just because you got talent don't mean you're accomplishing things. We've all worked with somebody somewhere who's super talented at something, but they're not the best at their job.
Right.
It's the same thing at the NBA. And then I look at the team achievements. I bring it all together, and that's the whole pie that makes the list. So while there's some people we've talked about this before,
right?
Even in his early career, somebody like Jordan, we'll use Jordan because he's the gold standard in a lot of these cases. Jordan was a Hall of Famer by year 3. Jordan was the best player in the league by year 3.
Right.
But nobody was giving him credit for that back then. Everybody was saying they were saying Magic, they were saying Bird, they were saying Kareem, even though he was old and washed, because those are the guys that had accolades.
Right.
And even when Jordan had one ring, if Jordan only had one ring, it really wouldn't have changed anything in terms of his talent level.
Yeah. I got you. Okay.
So he still would have had GOAT level talent, but would we be considering him the GOAT? Probably not, because he only got one ring. Now, of course, there are exceptions. We don't know. I mean, it's hard to say, but most of the time, that's usually what happens. If somebody only has, no matter how good they are in that one season, it's kind of like we talk about with, again, bringing it back to music. As much as I love Biggie Smalls, I'll never say he's the greatest rapper. I'll say he was one of the most talented rappers ever. But the dude, he basically only had 1.5 albums, because he made Ready to Die. And then unfortunately, he passed away. And then they came out with Life After Death with a lot of songs that probably wouldn't even made the cut had it actually been the second album that he wanted to do.
Which one is better? Just side note for you. Which one do you personally prefer, Life After or Ready to Die?
Oh, Ready to Die, no question.
Okay.
Life After Death got better. It got better radio singles, but because they made it a 2-disc album, it's got a lot of filler, a lot of stuff that is skippable. So because Biggie only had that one album, basically, I can't call him the greatest, even though he had great GOAT level talent as a rapper. That's part of the reason why Tupac stands will credit all Tupac's work, even though for me, Tupac doesn't have the body of work that is the quality of some of these guys. He just got a lot of stuff. I'm not saying, see, there we go. We're splitting hairs, man. I'm not saying, you never argue with an Allen Iverson fan. You never argue with a Tupac fan.
Okay. All right. you started looking because
with both of those guys, it's about the love. It's about what they made you feel more than what they may have actually have done.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I mean, Digital Underground Pac. I mean, come on, man. If we go on bar for bar, there's a whole lot of guys that go bar for bar better than him.
But I feel you on that.
There's very few people who make you feel stuff the way he did when he was rapping.
Right.
And that's one of the things that made him special. That's kind of like with Nipsey. When Nipsey passed away, Nipsey made cats feel something. He wasn't the greatest rapper. He wasn't a bad rapper, not at all. But he really made people feel something. But anyway, let me bring it back around.
Yeah.
So the way I do my list, the first section it has shifted. At one point, it was just 3 people.
Oh.
Now this first section has shifted to 4.
Okay.
Now with these 4 people, you can put them in any order you want.
All right.
It don't matter. It don't matter to me as long as those 4 people are the first 4 people you list.
Got to be these four at the top.
In my opinion, they got to be these four.
All right.
So we're gonna start with Bill Russell.
11-time champion, 5-time MVP. Am I right on that?
That's right. And the thing about Russell, he was winning those MVP awards when the players voted on him. And think about how many players hated the Celtics because they were winning all the time. Yeah, they couldn't deny him as being the best. The season that Wilt averaged 50, that you mentioned earlier, 50 and 25. Oscar averaged a triple-double. Neither one of them were the MVP.
Russell
was. In the 1963 All-Star game, Russell promised his dad that he was going to win the MVP for him. And it's an All-Star game. Remember, Russell's a defensive guy.
Right.
So you're in an All-Star game where it's Wilt, it's Elgin, it's Jerry West, it's Oscar Robertson, it's all these dudes that just be getting buckets.
Right.
And the guy who wins the MVP is a defensive center.
A defensive specialist.
I mean, the thing about Russell is like he, we just lost Elgin Baylor. Rest in peace to him.
Yeah.
And
is Elgin, and real quick, is Elgin the greatest player in league history to never win a ring, or do you still get at to Charles?
Barkley probably had a higher peak than Elgin. But Elgin was probably the most important player not to win a ring. When you look at everything that he did and everything that he meant to not just the game, but outside of the game, the culture, the civil rights stuff, the changes that he helped affect along with, Russell and Oscar and, Jim Brown and Muhammad Ali and Kareem and all these guys.
Absolutely.
He's probably the most important. And the sad thing about it is, he would have won a ring with the Lakers when they got Wilt, but he retired that in the middle of that season because he thought that he was holding the team back. Yeah. And technically, he still is entitled to that ring because he played on the team, but he won't accept it because he was like, I wasn't there for the championship.
Exactly.
So, back to what we were talking about. So, like with Russell, the sad thing about him is, when he does pass away, like even now, people don't talk enough about him, and part of it is his. Imagine trying to talk about Michael Jordan and how amazing a scorer he was if they didn't keep track of points.
That's right. You know what? Because my guy, I'm sure we'll get to him later. Akeem Olajuwon is officially the all-time leader for the NBA in blocks. But we know if the stat was kept during Russell's time, Chamberlain's time, that one of those two, probably Russell because he was more defensive, would be the all-time leader in blocks. So it's hard to talk about. Now, and then let me throw this out to you real quick before you continue. Is it a factor for you at all, the era that he played, considering that there were, 8 teams at that time? So it wasn't the parity, it wasn't the talent that you see now? Or do you look at it and say 11 championships in 13 years is 11 championships in 13 years, no matter the era?
I say it's 11 championships, no matter the era. Because here's the thing about it. All the teams were good. Because they had fewer teams, all the teams had great players on them. All the teams, have, you look at the Hall of Fame, pretty much almost every guy that played then is in the Hall of Fame. Obviously that's an exaggeration, but you get the point that I'm making. Like all the teams were good, and it was his team that did it.
Right.
Yes, there were fewer playoff rounds. That's a fact. But he was the one coming out on top. Nobody else was coming out on top. So, it's kind of like later on with Michael Jordan when the league gets watered down and he takes advantage of the expansion.
Right, mid-90s.
It was a weaker league, but guess what? He's the one who did it. He's the one that three-peated. Nobody else did that. So weak league or not, he's the one who did it. So, right. You can only play what's in front of you. And, when it came to Russell and, closed out games 21-0, he was the guy who would, and that's the thing. A lot of it's funny. A lot of the killer instinct characteristics that we subscribe to Kobe and Michael Jordan and stuff, like Russell was doing those things beforehand. Russell was the originator of making friends with people and then cutting their throat. You know, like, you know, he was all inside of Wilt's head. And he talks about that as part of the reason why he was able to do what he did. Because, you know, he couldn't necessarily stop Wilt because Wilt was an unstoppable force.
Yeah, he was. But
he could slow him down and he could stop him in the moments that mattered most, you know. So the very fact that Russell, you know, like I said, they named the Finals MVP after Russell because they didn't have it when he played. You know, he would easily, you know, of those 11 championships, you can make the argument that he would have won the Finals MVP at least 8 times, if not more than that. You know, I mean,
maybe Sam Jones would have got one, maybe a Bob Cousy early on, a Havlicek, maybe a mid to late one of those. But I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
So you look at all that kind of stuff, and then, like I said, just the fact that his dominance from the defensive end. I mean, you know, Bill Russell was, we talked about this before, Bill Russell was an athletic freak. All the guys on this list are athletic freaks. They were like a generation ahead, which is part of the reason why they were able to dominate the way they could. So anyway, let me go to the next guy. So the next guy got Michael Jordan.
Okay.
We'll go through him quickly. Yeah, he's a consensus, and a lot of that has to do with it, you know, not to say that he's not, you know, a fantastic player, but a lot of the consensus comes from the fact of when he became popular, when he won. You know, he won when ESPN was at its height, you know, and the game was first becoming global and marketing was at a whole new level with Nike and stuff. He lived up to what the image that they were putting out there. So, you know, and he built this incredible image around himself, this incredible company and whatnot. And, you know, his legacy is locked in stone. You know, Michael Jordan's incredible. Like I said, if you want to call him the greatest, I have no problem with that. I do have a problem if you try to call him the greatest college player, because that is not the case.
My goodness, that was embarrassing. Yeah,
it was very embarrassing. But see, and that's the scary part about the whole GOAT discussion with Michael Jordan. He's like, we talked about this before. Michael Jordan is no longer a basketball player. He is John Henry. He is not Babe Ruth. What's my man's name? Johnny Appleseed. He is a tall tale on the basketball court, to where people don't even know what he actually did, but talk about him like he was a giant. And again, that's not the case that he wasn't, but the number of people you run into that don't even know that he lost the game against Boston when he dropped 63 points.
Right. Yeah.
Like, that's ridiculous. The number of people that don't realize that, because the NBA tried to burn the tapes, that him losing to the Orlando Magic is part of what helped fuel him to get to 72-10 the next season.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like we do a disservice to people by not telling the complete story. You know, we kind of tell, like, we tell the sanitized version of it rather than what actually happened. You know, we don't talk about the journey and how until he won that first championship, people were doubting him constantly, that they were saying that no team could win with a score first guard, that he was a ball hog, you know, that he was overrated because all he could do was do this in the regular season and he couldn't get to nowhere in the playoffs. Like, this is what people were saying. But you talk to people now, they act like, no, day one, we knew Jordan was the greatest. Like, no, you know, it's like Jordan was the third pick and people were upset with him being the third pick. Some of them, because they were like, yo, we could have got Sam Bowie, or another big man. But so, you know, we just got to do a better job. Like, if you want to say Michael Jordan's the best, I have no problem with that. But just make sure that you have strong reasoning behind it.
Yeah, but how much of everything that you're saying, how much of it has to do with the fact, and it's interesting that you brought up Bill Russell first, a guy that came up in a different era. That's a factor. Here's another factor. Bill Russell, in my opinion, him, and for a completely different reason, I would say Rasheed Wallace, are the two most authentic to themselves basketball players we have ever had. Bill Russell was not interested in like you liking him. Bill Russell was going to be himself. He was going to be an intellectual. He was going to take no crap, right? And he was definitely he was intelligent, and that was not something that even back then when sports writers and newspaper men really controlled the narrative, They really weren't ready for that back then. They weren't ready for a black man to be brash and to be intelligent, to be able to speak his mind. And Bill Russell did that unapologetically. And so he was not necessarily beloved. He didn't have the best relationship with the city of Boston out beyond the Celtics because he wasn't just going to
100.
be put in the box. Now, the second guy you just mentioned, probably the biggest icon that the game has ever had in Michael Jordan, it was the Gatorade, it was the commercials, it was the style of play, it was I want to be like Mike. So, how much of the mythology is based on charisma, likability, and the marketability of Mike beyond just the game itself and the shield that may have been created around him
Oh,
because of
oh, a ton
I
of
mean,
it,
and of
man.
course,
I
got to be
mean,
the shoes. We talked about
yeah,
that in season one, right?
a ton of it. I mean, you think about like when the book The Jordan Rules came out, and I don't know if you've ever read it. Like Mike was pissed, and that all these people were allegedly leaking this information about, just how hated he was in the locker room and how much of a jackass he was because that went against his persona that he was putting out there.
Right.
It's like it's so much stuff. You look at like one of the things that bothered me a little bit about The Last Dance, and I won't go into a whole lot of detail, was just the omission of Juanita.
Yeah. Now one mention of
And
his
I mean, because she was there with him, she was his rock, and like if you look into their like, again, I don't like to go into people's relationships, but he really did her really dirty in terms of like, apparently Michael Jordan was dirty macking with half the league's girlfriends and wives, from what
yeah.
I've seen and from the reports from the divorce decree with him and Juanita.
Yeah, open
Like,
secret. Like people know, but they just don't want to talk
you know,
about it. And again,
you
Michael
know,
is the ultimate Teflon athlete, and
you know,
of that generation.
and then of course, like Michael, he didn't do anything socially, back then. And I appreciate now that he is trying to embrace that role more. I don't know if he's doing it because maybe he partially feels guilty that he never did more when he was younger. Because I mean, I felt like that before about things. So I can only imagine how Michael Jordan feels when he realizes like now, I've got all this money, I've got all this power, and I probably could have made a difference in some, think about that North Carolina Senate race. He could have definitely made a difference in that.
Right. Especially how close that race ended up being. Yeah, you're right.
So I think that definitely plays a part in how we see, because again, we both grew up in the 80s and 90s. Like I talk about it all the time. I used to watch Come Fly With Me and Michael Jordan's Playground every single day.
Yeah.
Every day after school, I'd watch them. During the
Airtime
summer
was my favorite. Airtime.
During the summer, ESPN would show Unstoppables, which was a documentary of the first three-peat. Now think about it. They were showing a documentary of a three-peat basically a year after it happened. like that's crazy. Like when you think about it, like,
yeah, I remember that.
Nobody has stuff like that.
I know.
Like, do you think about all the documentary stuff that's happened to LeBron that they could do if they wanted to, but they haven't done nothing? Like, if this guy in his prime, they're running documentaries on his championships that just run all the time. And then, like, so it's, we talk about it, like, it's easy to think about, like, we're talking about with the clutch thing. It's easy to be like, oh, well, Jordan was more clutch. Because you got all these memories of ESPN showing these shots over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. But then what was it? Like maybe 2 months ago, I sent you that video. It was like 11 minutes of LeBron game winners, and half of them we didn't even remember. But it's like, dang, he has had a whole lot of game winners, and a whole lot of them were in the playoffs and in big games. So, but anyway, let's continue down the list. We can talk about MJ all day.
Let's do it.
So after MJ, like I said, this was the original big three of my list.
Okay.
As you called out the shirt.
Yes.
Mr. the artist formerly known as Dual Sender, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Yeah, and the thing about Kareem, the reason why, like I said, the reason why these are the guys I had unassailable with the GOAT conversation. With Kareem, he's the one player who has been the greatest player on the planet at every level. He was the best player in high school. He's the best player in college. He was the best player in the NBA. and he won at every level. He won at every level, you know. So that's something that's underrated. Then the fact that the longevity of his career, you know, we always talk about Michael's MVP awards. Kareem's the all-time leader. Kareem's got 6.
That's right. That's right. Because Mike's got 5 regular season MVPs. Kareem is the only one to have 6. Yeah, you're right.
Right. We talk about the championships. Kareem got 6.
He does.
Now, you know, again, Kareem's aren't as pretty as Mike's because, you know, Mike got the 2 3-peats.
Yep.
You know, but the fact of the matter is he's got 6. Either the numbers matter or they don't. So, and then of course he's the all-time leading scorer. He had the most unstoppable shot in the history of the game.
Right.
You know, his resume is incredible. And the fact that he won 2 finals MVPs, almost 20 years apart. Just shows, you know, like, again, that longevity, just how incredible he was. And again, Kareem is another guy, kind of like Bill Russell, where he didn't get along with the media. So the media didn't embrace him. You know, they hated him for a long time. And, you know, Magic helped soften some of that. I mean, but you think about by the time Magic came in, I mean, Kareem had he's almost a 10-year vet, I think, if I remember correctly.
Hall of Fame career before Magic got there.
Right. You know,
5-time league MVP, an NBA championship, a finals MVP. So he was a Hall of Famer before Magic got there and was still a critical part. Does Magic win a single championship out of his 5 in the 80s without Cap?
No.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
I mean, because actually, here's the thing. When you think about that, I'm gonna say no because Magic would have been like, I mean, Magic already been to what was it? He went to the finals 9 times.
Yeah.
And won 5. So he's already in that LeBron kind of boat when it comes to making it to the finals, because the West was super weak. People always forget about that. The West was weak back then. So Magic probably still would have carried the Lakers to the championship or close, but it probably would have been like a lot of those LeBron teams where Magic would have got them there, and then they would lose because they were supposed to lose. Like they weren't going to be the favorite. You think about it, they would have been playing Boston, they would have been playing Detroit, they would have been playing the Bulls, and a Laker team with just Magic ain't, you know, even with Worthy, ain't gonna be beating any of those teams.
No, they're not. Yeah. A capless Lakers team is not beating those early Sixers that they were going up against. Certainly not.
You know, outside of that one game, you know, and that's again that one game with Magic. It takes away from Kareem because Kareem had dominated that series. Magic has one excellent game, and then they give him the Finals MVP. And then there was another year where they gave it to this was with the Celtics. You know, Celtics, one guy, Cornbread Maxwell, has one good game in Game 7, and he gets an MVP over Bird and them. So they were doing some wild stuff back then with some of these awards. But so like I said, those were the original. You put any of these 3 up top, I'm good with you, as long as it's those 3, and then the other 2 follow behind.
But you revised your list, man. So the people want to know. You revised your list. Why did you do that? And who did you add?
So I've turned that trio into a quad, and I added LeBron James. And it got to the point where, you know, you couldn't keep saying, well, his career's not done, blah, blah. You have to look at what the man's doing, man. 18 years in, you know, 4 championships, 4 MVPs. So no one has more MVPs other than the 3 guys I listed. You know, 4 Finals MVPs. Nobody's got more than except for the 2 of the guys I listed. The fact that he's on pace to score, and he's on pace to break Kareem record. He's on pace for 40,000 points. He's already got more minutes.
No, we got to pause because, and we touched on this last time you came through Champions Material. It's not that he's just going to be the all-time. I think you pointed that out. One of us did, and it's not that he's going to just be the all-time leader when it's all said and done in points. He will be in the top 10, maybe arguable top 5 in assists.
Yeah, he's going to be the only person in the top 10 of points that is in the top 10 of assists. Ridiculous. And he's going to have over 10. He's going to have over 10,000 assists. I think he's like number 7 right now, if I remember correctly.
Ridiculous.
But he ain't far off, and he's almost at 10,000 now. And this was a small forward. I understand he's got the ball in his hands a lot of times,
Right.
but like LeBron, the funny thing about it, like I was talking to somebody about this one time. You put LeBron in any position, and in most cases, he's the best player in the league.
Yeah, if you put him at point.
If you put him at point guard, he's the best point guard. If you put him at shooting guard, he's the best shooting guard. If you put him at small forward, he's the best small forward. Now the other with now that he's a little older, not so much with like center and power forward, especially with like Giannis and KD in them. Right. But in his prime, you put him in any of those positions because he did routinely play all of those positions.
He did,
for the Cavs and for the Heat.
Right.
And he would be the best player. So LeBron is LeBron's LeBron.
Yeah.
And
he's not even done yet.
He's not done. And hopefully, I wish him good health. I wish Anthony Davis good health. Hopefully they can pull it out this year. But he's not done, and we don't know what else he's gonna do, man.
Yeah.
And again, if he never plays again, he is where he is. So now, he's locked.
You revised your list to bring LeBron into basically your threesome became a foursome, right?
Right, because previously when I first made this list, probably about, I want to say it was like 2014.
So he had 2 at that time. Okay.
And LeBron wasn't even in the top 10 at that time. I think I had him like 12 or 13. Okay. Again, he had top 10 talent, but career-wise, I couldn't move him down yet.
I got you.
But with everything that he's done since then, he has to go then.
So that 3-1 comeback and then this bubble championship, which I contend still, and I don't care what anybody says, that championship last year, regardless of who would have won it, under those circumstances, was the toughest championship to win based on the circumstances. I'm not talking about competition and like literally on court, just all of the circumstances of everything that went on last year. So those two, 3-1 comeback, bubble, you said you had to put them up there. I got you.
Yeah, definitely. And then just everything he did in between, man. You look at he's got 4 MVPs. Like some people are saying, well, he should have 8 now. He shouldn't have 8 because he ain't been the best player in the regular, because he hasn't focused on the regular season like that. Exactly. But there are a couple regular seasons in there where he probably, like, was it 2018 when Harden won? I'd gave it to LeBron because LeBron led the league and he's he had more rebounds, more assists, more total points or anything than Harden.
And in 2011, I'm sorry, 2011,
and he carried that Cavs team.
Yeah, 2011, the Derrick Rose, and I understand that Derrick Rose was the story that year, and he certainly balled out. What they weren't going to do, because had they gave him the MVP he deserved in 2011, now we're talking about a guy that would have won basically 5 straight, because he basically went 2, gave it to Rose, and then the next 2. Yeah. So he should, in my opinion, be a 6-time league MVP. But I digress. All right, so we got your top 4, you know what I mean? So let's
keep going. So next, Magic.
Okay.
Magic was the future. Mm-hmm. He was a peek into the future, man. I talk about like a lot of people don't remember him, but there was a cat, Sharif Abdul-Rahim.
Oh yeah.
And his nickname was the Future because he was 6'9" and could basically play the point and do everything on the court. Mm. Well, who was like the precursor to that? Magic. Right. Magic was a glimpse into what LeBron could be and what these guys, like somebody like Luka and these guys are doing now. Magic, being able to play all 5 positions at a fairly high level. We were talking about it earlier, him filling in for Kareem, playing center, scoring 42 points in that finals game, and ending the Celtics with the little baby skyhook. I mean, Magic is Magic, but again, just like with Jordan, we can't forget there was a time where they were calling him Tragic Johnson, because the Lakers were losing and he was the coach killer. So these are things people forget about these guys. That nobody seems to forget about LeBron right now because we're all in the moment.
Right.
But after Magic, I've got Wilt. Wilt is an interesting player to do.
And I got to ask you before you continue, does Wilt fall into, you touched on this earlier, where you see the ridiculous talent, but talent doesn't always make you the best or take you all the way to the top. Now, most people will acknowledge Wilt, the dominance, even more so than Shaq, most dominant player the game has ever seen, but only 2 rings. And the explanation that you hear is, well, he was going up against Bill Russell and the Celtics, stacked team. And the second thing that you hear, he didn't have the killer instinct. He was just supremely talented. Where do you fall on that?
I mean, that's exactly what Wilt was. Wilt was an incredible force. My dad loves Wilt Chamberlain, swears by him. And, he used to hate the Celtics largely because they would beat Wilt. But Wilt was a guy who he wanted to be liked more than anything. You know, and it seems like the individual stuff meant more to him than the team winning. And it wasn't truly until like in 67 when they won, Russell was injured.
Right.
And then in 72 is when he basically played a better version of Russell. So what he did was like everything that Russell would do for the Celtics, that's what Wilt's MO. Like Wilt wasn't worried about scoring. It was rebounding, basically rebounding and outlet passes. Mm-hmm. That's what he was focused on, and defense. And the Lakers rode that to the championship. And
because Jerry West was like the number one option scoring wise for them at that season, right? Yeah, okay, I got you.
Yeah, that was the season, like I said, Elgin retired.
Right.
So, Wilt was a guy. I mean, you think about it. Again, we talked about he averaged 50 and 25 one season, and then the next season, because they called him selfish, he went out there and averaged 30 assists just to prove he could.
Yeah.
So it's like, you got to do this. Let's say 30 assists. No, not 30. How many assists did he average? I can't remember the number now, but he led the league in assists.
Right. I think he had a 30 assist game, and I think he averaged.
Yeah, he had 30. So I was about to say, wait a minute, what am I talking about? I sound crazy. But he led. He went out there and led the league in assists.
Right.
So, he just like you listen to him talk from back when he was alive, and you could tell that life was more important than basketball to him. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Opposite,
But like the guys who, and that's kind of like the criticism people give. I keep bringing LeBron into this, but that's one of the criticisms that LeBron gets. Even again, Michael got the same criticism before he won. They were talking about he was focused too much on trying to sell shoes and do advertisements and stuff like that, and his own brand that he's never going to win. But that's just like that's really just narrative stuff. But like with Wilt, it really affected him.
Right.
So after Wilt, I got my main man, Tim Duncan.
Okay.
Now, Tim Duncan.
Here we go.
Tim Duncan is a highly underrated player. Partially not by everybody, by people who are more casual fans. Part of the problem with Duncan is the fact that Duncan basically looked the same his entire career.
Yeah.
So he looked and he wasn't flashy. He had if you go back and look at Duncan, like his first 3 years, like Duncan was a beast, man, in terms of his athleticism, the things that he did on the court. I mean, he used to be crossing people up. I mean, he didn't do it a lot, because that wasn't really his focus. Right. He wasn't trying to be out there showing up. But if it was, if putting the ball behind my back is the move I need to make to get by you, he was doing it. Like Duncan was an incredible talent. And then the fact that, he wins 2 MVPs in the prime of the Lakers dynasty with Shaq and Kobe.
In the prime he wins the O'Neal. Yes.
And he went head to head with Shaq in his prime and took him out. Did the Lakers come back and get him the next year? But it was never like Duncan always came to play. You know, I mean, he put up, he has one of the greatest finals games in history where, he had a 32 points, 20 rebounds, 7 assists, 7 block game, like to close out a series, so a 30-20 game. Yeah. I mean, he had a game in the playoffs where he basically, like, they didn't give it to him. He had a quadruple double, but they don't give it to him. Like, if you go back and watch the game, you'll see clearly where he had two additional blocks that they didn't credit towards him. They credited towards other players. But yeah, he had a quadruple double in the playoffs.
The best compliment I can pay to Tim Duncan is him and Michael Jordan in the history of the game are the only two players where you would immediately say, okay, there is no debate that they are the best ever at their position. Tim Duncan is the best power forward, and it's not even a debate. And Michael Jordan is the best two guard, and it's not a debate. You can have a debate at point, you can have a debate at small forward and at center.
Definitely. Duncan was, like I said, he was the best power forward, and he anchored the best defense in the league for a good a good 10 plus years. Yeah, like he was that's one of the things that annoys me about the fact that he doesn't have a defensive player of the year award, because of the fact that he was the anchor for the Spurs defense. Everybody knew he was the anchor. No, he never won one. So the idea that KG can win a defensive player of the year for 1 year in the Celtics being their anchor, but Tim Duncan never got one for multiple years at the Spurs, it's kind of sad. But again, he didn't care. He was focused on the end goal. And he could, like, there is a scenario where there's probably if you talk about the multiverse with Marvel and DC Comics, there is an alternate timeline where Tim Duncan has 7 championships, easy, maybe more.
You know what? And guess what?
Because you look at 2000, you look at 2006, the Ginobili foul on Dirk. If Ginobili doesn't foul, Spurs win that series and they beat Miami.
So you haven't beaten that Heat team?
Definitely.
Okay.
And then, of course, they won the next year, And then you look at, what's the other year?
13.
Yeah, 2013.
Should have won. So I could have, should have won that one, clearly.
So.
And then there's the reality, 5-1. What is he? Is he a 3-time Finals MVP? Yeah, 3-time Finals MVP.
3 times Finals MVP.
5-1, should have been 6-0. 5-time NBA champion, undisputed, best power forward in NBA history. Tim Duncan.
So the next guy on the list, now this guy has moved up some, because at first, I'm not gonna lie, I was probably a little bit of a hater. I was probably salty about some of the stuff that he did to my team in the playoffs and stuff like that.
Here we go.
But Kobe B. Bryant. And I moved, and I didn't just move him up after he passed away. I moved him up way before that.
Okay.
Because I realized, like, I can't put him above Duncan, because again, while he was great at his position, there's an argument that Kobe was never the best player in the league throughout his career. That he was the best guard in the league, but not the best player. And I stand by that, because you look at multiple seasons, Shaq was better. Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, these guys were better. They were considered better. They were the ones who were winning the MVPs.
05, 06, 07. I'm not going to say 08. 05, 06, 07. To you, Kobe Bryant was not the best player in the league.
No, he was the best shooting guard, but not the best player. Because what did all his scoring do? He was playing inefficient. They didn't win nothing. They got knocked out in the first round.
True.
So then he gets that one MVP in 2008, which really belongs to Chris Paul.
Oh man. Don't come on.
We talked about this before. That MVP belongs to Chris Paul. Chris Paul led the league in win shares, and the only reason, think about it, the Lakers were a 7 seed. At the midway point, they were a 7 seed.
Right.
The Pelicans were 2 seed. Kobe was, demanding a trade, all kinds of stuff. They bring in Pau Gasol, that horrible Memphis trade, for nothing. Pau Gasol is the reason the Lakers turn around and go on this run and go from 7 up to the number 1 seed. Not Kobe. Kobe's numbers didn't change. He had the same numbers before that he got Pau Gasol as he did after. So they get Pau Gasol. So if anything, you make the argument Pau Gasol is the MVP of that team. But that's neither here nor there. But like I said,
does Kobe's legacy get hurt by the fact that we saw the better version of him first? Had we saw Kobe before Mike, is he looked at differently, or is it the same regardless?
I think it's the same regardless. Kobe's just looked at as because again, Kobe was fantastic, but he was never Mike.
Right.
And people love Kobe a different type of way, especially now. Especially Laker fans. But he was never Mike, and that's the thing. He don't have to be Mike, But I talked about there was a few years ago. They were honoring Kobe, and I'm trying to think. I think Nike was doing it. Somebody was doing it.
Okay.
And they had it where you could you would upload a picture of Kobe, and you would choose descriptors for him. So when I did it, I chose, I had a picture of him dunking on the Spurs.
Right.
And I picked Tormentor because that's what he was during those years. Kobe was the X factor.
Yeah.
And the years we were able to slow Kobe down were the years the Spurs won. The years they couldn't slow Kobe down were the years that they lost a lot of times.
Yeah.
So those are things that, because while Kobe doesn't necessarily have the resume of of a lot of the other great players. That's why, again, he's kind of hard to place. If you watch him, like you said, you talk about talent. You watch his talent, he's got top 10 talent. He's got top tier talent.
I test.
But it's okay, but you look at his resume, you're like, it's kind of lacking. What's going on? But then you look at some of the circumstances and you understand. But at the end of the day, the number of points he scored, the way he scored, he was a fearless scorer. He was, there's not many guys out there that will willingly take a shot over, 3-4
greatest tough shot
people
maker in NBA history.
Definitely. He would take and make a lot of, and that again adds to some of his legacy because he would take and make a lot of unnecessarily hard shots. That's one thing, things about Mike. Mike always focused on getting to his spot.
Yes.
He would get to his spot and he would make shots that he routinely made. Those are the shots he worked on.
Mm-hmm.
Kobe worked on almost trying to make the whole floor his spot to where he could just throw up a shot from anywhere. Now, again, like I said, that wrecks his efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it gives him the confidence that he knows that I can make shots from this spot. I can make shots off balance from this spot. I can make shots off balance from this spot with two hands in my face. I never forget that series in 97 when, nobody on the Lakers wanted to take the shot and they put in the rookie.
Mm-hmm.
He shoots the air balls, but he wasn't afraid to take the shots.
That changed him. He worked his butt off to make sure that never happened to him again. Those 3 air balls, ironically, might have been the best thing that ever happened to Kobe because he never stopped working after that.
So that's where I put Kobe at. And I know a lot of people are talking about they need to make him the logo. He doesn't need to be the logo.
No, he's not. With all due respect, rest in peace. He's not the logo.
Yeah, exactly. He's not the logo. If you want to change it from Jerry West, you want to update it, no problem with that. But I don't feel it should be Kobe, and I definitely don't feel like we should do it just because, we're upset because he's not with us any longer.
Right. Well,
there are guys who are probably, better choices if you're focused on changing it or just make it what it was supposed to be. The logo was originally supposed to be, they used the Jerry West photo, but it was supposed to be just a composite photo that represented the league. So I've seen some fake logos that people have made that kind of where depending on who looks at it and how you look at it, it looks like it's different guys. And I think that's the route they should go if they do decide to change it. where you could be like, oh, is that supposed to be Mike? Is that supposed to be, Kareem, or who is that supposed to? You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't tell.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we at number 9 now.
We got 2 more. What we doing?
So number 9, I got the Hick from French Lick, Larry Legend. So, Larry Bird, only man, or the only man to score 50, 40, 90 from the field. Well, I'm not saying not the only one. He was the first person to do that. Yeah. And then he's the only other player to win 3 MVPs in a row. That'll probably never happen again with the way.
He's the last one to do it. You're right. Yep.
Yeah. The way they do the voting.
Right.
Larry Bird was incredible. Like I said, he won, we talked about those Tim Duncan MVPs. Larry Bird won those MVPs during during Showtime.
Exactly. And had to go through some tough Sixer teams and underrated some Milwaukee Bucks teams, the Sidney Moncrief Bucks. So he definitely had to go through some, even though you talked about how Magic really didn't have a lot to go through in the West. Houston Rockets would get their act together every now and then thanks to Akeem or Moses Malone. But other than that, the Lakers were penciled in for the finals. On the East, Larry had to go through some things, and it toughened him up, made him, and he was a great player, just made him even greater.
That's right. And the thing that hurts Bird, again, a lot of people you talk to probably have him higher, but if you're really looking at career, I mean, you got to go with the career. He had a short career. He ended up having back injuries because one off season he decided to repave his garage.
It was never the same.
And he injured himself. So we got to be real about that. And that's the thing, like, he didn't get to play as long as he could have, and in those last years as high a level as he could have. Yeah. So he's still a fantastic player, and at his peak he was incredible. But so that's why that's why some of these other guys fall down or are above, because again, he may have had a higher peak than some of them, but when you look at the longevity piece, like again, his peak was definitely higher than Kobe's, but Kobe, has a longer longevity. He has more years of putting up amazing numbers that are comparable to some of Bird's best years.
Absolutely. Kobe gave you 15.
Same thing.
Honestly, gave you 9. Well, we can argue 10 high quality seasons. True, good point.
Same thing with like Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan played for almost 20 years, and again, Bird might have had a higher peak in some of the. His Bird's best season is arguably better than Duncan's best season, but Duncan had more of those seasons at that level.
Right.
So that's what. And then the final guy on my top 10 right now, the previous, obviously since LeBron moved up and Kobe moved up, some guys got moved out. But number 10 is Oscar Robertson.
Ooh.
So,
okay. All right. Explain that one.
Yeah. Oscar Robertson, man. I mean, you got 12-time All-Star, NBA champion. First man to average triple-double. Did it for 7 straight years. Oscar was the prototype to the modern point guard. Okay. He was a prototype. Right. Created the fadeaway jumper. A lot of people don't realize that. Mm-hmm. But Oscar was a guy who, at his size, you think about that, being a point guard, and we think about Westbrook, but like getting out rebounded centers and stuff.
Right.
Putting up 30. Oscar was incredible, and he's probably the second. Well, there's no probably. He's the second greatest point guard after Magic.
So you have Oscar. Well, obviously you have Oscar above Isaiah, above John Stockton, above CP. So basically, you just got him number 2 right behind Magic.
Oh yeah, I don't even. We talked about this once a while back. Stockton's not even in that discussion.
Hey! All time
because
steals. Come on.
That's fine.
Literally made Carmelo.
No, I think Carmelo made Stockton.
We ain't doing this right now. We ain't doing it.
Because Stockton was not as good as Isaiah Thomas. Period.
Excuse me? So you have Isaiah
Period.
Thomas above John Stockton?
100%. Isaiah Thomas from Chicago, Zeke. You look at how he dominated them Bulls teams, man, and you look at how he dominated them Celtics teams. John Stockton could never do that, not on his best day.
Who's a better defender?
You know, Isaiah.
Who is a better pure passer Isaiah or John?
That's a difficult question. Because here's the thing. John got more assists. But just because you get more assists don't mean you're a better passer. You know, think about it. Like, again, let's bring Westbrook back in.
Okay.
Is Westbrook a better passer than LeBron?
Absolutely not.
But Westbrook has pretty much always averaged more assists than LeBron.
Okay.
Is James Harden better a passer than LeBron?
Come on, man. No.
Right. You know, and that's the thing. Like, I'm not saying. I mean, come on, man. We had Isaiah put 42 on the Lakers on a bum ankle in a game 7. That if he was healthy, they would have won. Like, Isaiah was a problem. You know, put
it this way: Isaiah is a better scorer and clearly had the killer instinct when you're talking about clutch moments. But I believe,
he was a better defender. He was a better defender. John Stockton gets credit for them steals.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which just because you get a lot of steals, it doesn't mean you're a good defender. You know, think about it. Iverson led the league in steals one year, and he was a terrible defender. You know, I'm just saying. We got to look, because if you look at how Isaiah used to light Stockton up. Mm-hmm. Isaiah used to light Stockton up. Gary Payton used to light Stockton up. Jason Kidd used to light Stockton up. Tim Hardaway used to light Stockton up.
I was about to try to throw the whole dream team theme in there, but I knew better, because I know the only reason why Isaiah was not on the dream team is because he had beef with Magic, and Michael at the time Larry didn't necessarily like him either. That's the only reason why. But you know what? Let's tap into this real quick, because I definitely want to get to what you cooking up, and for the video audience, they're going to look behind you and realize you're doing something special. So before we touch on that, one last thing. There's one name that either of us did not mention, and you know where I'm going with this. And I'll let you kick this one off. The big Aristotle, Shaquille O'Neal. Neither of us have him in our top 10. Why don't you have him in your top 10?
Well, he's 11 now.
Okay.
LeBron moved him out. It's that simple. Well, you know, once I moved LeBron to the top 10, you know, Shaq is who got moved out, because Shaq was at 10.
Okay.
Because again, Shaq is one of the most dominant players ever played in the league, next to Wilt Chamberlain. Mm-hmm. But if you look at Shaq's career, in a lot of ways, it feels like he didn't live up to his potential, and that's one thing you don't really feel that about a lot of the other greats.
Right.
You can't say that, you know, oh, you should have, there are always arguments where you feel like somebody should have more or something. But, you know, the fact that Shaq only has one MVP award, you know, I feel like he should have some more.
Yeah.
You think about if he had kept himself healthy, like, you know, if he had treated his body the way Kobe did, or Tim Duncan did, or Michael did, you know, you think about how much more dominant he could have been if he wasn't, you know, resting on company time, as he said, because I get hurt on company time, on rehab on company time. You know, when he came back in Miami, when he was focused, you know, you saw what he was doing. But even in that year, you know, that they won, you know, Dwayne Wade was the reason. Shaq was, I'm not saying he wasn't a big part of it, but Dwayne Wade, you know, turning into, you know, 86 Jordan for a few games was the reason why they won.
Yeah.
And then, you know, of course, after that, he becomes a journeyman. And he was never in shape again, and he just relied on being big at that point. Like that, later Shaq turned into what people used to always claim Shaq was.
Yeah,
because Shaq has incredible touch. He was athletic. He had amazing footwork.
Shaq was something special.
But a lot of times
he was at his most dominant, you know, in the early 2000s with the Lakers. Those were his best teams. That's where he got his rings. But I would take 96. And I know I'm probably in the minority on this, and I understand that. Give me 95, 96, Shaq, over 2000, 2001 Shaq. People say, what do you look at the man?
Yeah, he's smoking, man.
I'm telling
He's
you.
smoking, man.
Give me.
Only way I would take that Shaq is if we paired him with Phil Jackson.
The mindset.
Yeah. But even then, I don't know if he would have that mindset, because part of that comes from the drive that he had from losing to the Rockets in a series that was closer than what it looked like.
To my all-time center, by the way, Hakeem Olajuwon. Get him in there.
You know, so, you know, like I said, Shaq, when he got old, he did turn into the guy who was just big. You know, that was the criticism people say. He's just so much bigger than him. That's why he does what he does. Like, no, he did what he did because he was incredible.
Mm-hmm.
But when he was older, you know, he lost the athletic ability and whatnot, and he became like he was just there. Right. And that's kind of what hurts him, because, you know, you end up, he got 4 championships, but he's got 1 MVP. He's got the 3 Finals MVPs, which is, you know, fantastic with the 3P. But basically outside of that 3-year period, and even in that 3-year period, because like I said, he was hurt, he was overweight, he was out of shape, and he was kind of just taking advantage of the fact that, you know, he could dominate until he couldn't, you know. And of course, and Kobe messed up some of that, especially against Detroit, because they should have beat Detroit. Yeah. But you just feel like he left a lot on the table. Yeah. Like he had all these gifts, all these talents, and he left it on the table. And that's part of the reason why. I mean, he's still, again, we're talking about 4,500 people who played in the league, and we're still saying he's 11. Right. You know, so he still had a fantastic career, but he could have easily been. He could have been in that unassailable level. He could have been one of the top 4, top 5 players ever.
To ever played again.
And I mean, you can make the argument, if you're just talking about centers, he is. Oh yeah. But that's just what it is.
No, man, well said.
Of course, your boy. We'll get into that real quick. Olajuwon.
Come on, man.
So I had Olajuwon. I believe I previously had him either 11 or 12. I can't remember specifically. Okay. But he's in that range. And the thing about Olajuwon is a fantastic player. Mm-hmm. But the problem with the Olajuwon arguments is very similar to the Jordan argument sometimes. People treat Olajuwon like the only years he played were 94 and 95. That's what they treat him like. The 2 seasons where he had the best year, when he repossessed the MVP award from David Robinson, when he, you know, they show the Dream Shake highlight of David Robinson all the time. When he, you know, and when they beat the Magic, when they swept them, even though, again, that series was a lot closer than people talk about.
Nick Anderson, hit your free throws, man. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You know, but Olajuwon played a lot more than that. You know, he came into the same league same time as Jordan. So the whole time, he made, you know, the 80s, what was he doing? You look at his numbers overall. Yeah, he's got the MVPs from that year, but, you know, and the Finals MVPs. But outside of that, you know, he was I'm trying to remember exactly, but he's got fewer first team All NBAs than the other centers that played around then. And yeah, I understand the league was really strong with centers, but again, you got to look at who your competition is. Your competition. So if you're supposed to be the top center, then you should be at least, if not first team, your second team. Right. So a lot of the time he was 13 or no team. You know, I think he has 6 first teams, if I remember correctly, and he played 18 years. So. Yeah.
He was a 6-time, I think, first team All NBA. I think he may have been either 2 or maybe 3-time second team. And again, he played in the best era of big man that the game has, you know, ever seen, or at least the league has ever seen. I mean, he played tail end of Cat, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, probably, if I'm being completely honest, when I take everything into account, the best center of all time. Young Shaq, David Robinson, Patrick Ewing, right? Alonzo, let's go ahead and get him in there, even though he's not in this conversation. But again, he was a impactful center.
Oh yeah, fantastic.
Dikembe, right? So he played in a great era of centers. I've just always said with Elijah Wan, and you're right. If you're taking, the accolades into account, it's really bottled up within that couple of years span. But we
Right.
touched on this in the LeBron episode that we did last year. There's two conversations. You're talking career and longevity, and you're talking peak, what you saw at their very best. I would take the 94 Akeem Olajuwon, who won the league MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Finals MVP, and if Centers, ever really got All-Star Game MVP, he would have got that, but that was a whole nother conversation. I would take that Akeem Olajuwon at his absolute best over any center. And again, all respect to Bill, Will, Kareem. I didn't see them at their best. So I'm talking about from the basically mid 80s on, where I was at least old enough in retrospect to understand the game of basketball. I'm taking that Akeem over 2001 Shaq, over 95 David Robinson. Okay, I'm taking him over 92 Ewing, whoever you want to throw in there. Akeem Olajuwon at his very best is the best center I've ever seen. So if I'm starting my all-time team, Akeem is my center, and Shaq is backing him up.
I can't agree with that, man. I can't. Like, I agree 100% with you with his talent. Like, what we talked about, again, talent. Mm-hmm. He's got top 10 talent. Right. He's one of the most talented centers ever. His skill set, because he's one of a kind. What he could do on the court, his ability. But the thing about him, even another good thing about it, like he by himself, he used to create 5 turnovers a game between his blocks and his steals.
Yes.
I mean, like that's ridiculous. Again, on paper we've never seen anything like that because we don't have what Russell was doing.
Right.
If you talk to the old heads, they'll tell you Russell was doing at least that, if not more. Right. But on what's on paper is Hakeem doing it. Mm-hmm. But that, like I said, that 94 season, that he's no 2000 Shaq, man. He's no 2000 Shaq.
Come on,
like I can pull him second maybe if you're talking about the modern NBA. If you're talking about everything since 1980, I might put him second, but I can't. 2000 Shaq was just an unstoppable force, man.
And that might have been, to your earlier point, that might have been the one season in his career where from basically from start to finish, regular season to the last game of the finals, where Shaq was locked in, focused, all in on a game of basketball. And we saw a guy that was dominant. And again, we didn't see Wilt, right? So we saw a guy in that 2000 Shaq that was dominant at a level that I've never seen. The most dominant player I've ever seen. Not best, but dominant. And again, man, Akeem, I can go back and forth with Akeem all day, but the one thing I do appreciate about, and we have our debates, man, and it's fun, but the one thing I do appreciate is that, you always have nuance and context to, every opinion that you have about every player and everything like that. I want to throw this in here real quick before we transition. And so out of the players that are playing today, right? We already know LeBron, and he's not done. He's already ascended. At this point, it's just a matter of can he get even higher based on how the rest of his career plays out. Of the current players today, who are, if any, are the players that you think could crack your top 10 one day? The only 2 players that I can immediately think of, with all due respect to James Harden and how he's playing right now with the Nets, will be Steph Curry and Kevin Durant. I can't think of any other players that are currently playing that I could see a scenario there where they could one day crack my top 10 and make you have to revise your list again. Anybody else that you see playing currently that you say he could?
Currently, the most obvious choice is KD. Like, right. I don't think Steph will get there.
You don't think he can?
No, he's not going to crack it. When I think about his career at this point, he's not going to do it. Okay. He'll, because he might overtake. I'm trying to think, because like I can't even fully put him like I said, if you're talking about just point guards. Right. So we got, with my list right now, we got Magic, we got Oscar, we got Isaiah, all right, we got Chris Paul. Okay. So Steph will pass Chris Paul.
Okay.
But there's an argument. There's an argument.
Isaiah Thomas. Zeke.
There's an argument.
Okay.
career-wise, I can probably put him past Zeke. I would say peak, he was never as – he was a better shooter than Zeke. And Zeke was a great shooter. That's the thing. Like, it was just different because, Zeke wasn't – I mean, they shot like 5 3-pointers in a year.
Right.
So –
yeah.
So that's like, that's 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. But I don't think I can move him past, I don't think I can move him into the top
There's
3.
a ceiling with Steph, but KD, on the other hand, as far as small forwards, I currently have KD as my 3rd all-time small forward, right behind LeBron, right behind Larry. And frankly, KD is going to pass. And assuming that he comes back here, we'll see what happens. Assuming he comes back healthy, he's going to pass Larry Bird. I don't think he can historically pass LeBron, but can he crack the top 10 and maybe knock for me, a Tim Duncan out of there? I don't know. For you, maybe you know what I mean?
I mean, you can make the argument he's already past Bird. So if you make that argument, then technically he should be in my top 10.
All right.
Because you look at his MVPs, look at his championship seasons, you look at his ceiling, you look at what he's done, and he's gonna be right. Like, he's gonna be right behind LeBron in a lot of those categories.
Right.
Whether if he decides to play that long, a lot of people are saying that his heart's not going to be in it to play as long as like LeBron. Because one of the things that apparently drives LeBron is the idea of playing with or against his son. He really wants to have that that King Griffey Jr. moment,
right,
with his son. So, I mean, Durant definitely, Luka potentially. He's got all the talent. Again, like we talked about top tier talent, he's got the talent to be there. And his first season was already a legendary level. So it's up there with some of the greatest rookie seasons of all time with a lot of guys. So it's just a matter of if he's going to keep this up and if he's going to continue to get better.
Yeah.
Giannis, I don't think Giannis will get there. I think again, he has the talent level, but I don't think he'll get there. Right. I'm trying to think who else. Zion, I don't think he's got the talent, or, and maybe I'll be wrong, but I see Zion as somebody who could crack top 50, maybe the top 30, but I can't see him as being at the end of the day, top 10 or top 15.
Yeah.
And again, that's no shade to these guys because, like we said, 4,500 people have played in the league. So if you're still in the top 50, that's a ridiculous accomplishment, But at this point, we're really talking about the cream of the crop, the best of the best. And, like, I just don't really think that there's anybody out there who's doing enough to where they can maybe make strides on an individual level in terms of their particular position. Like, oh, he's top 10 in point guards or top 10 in forwards or whatever.
Right.
But I can't really see anybody doing more than that.
Well, there you go.
But who knows? It could change.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. That right there is That Dude Curtis. I am Shawn Vaughn. And again, this is the very best, the all-time best that the game of basketball has ever seen. I gave you my top 10. That dude gave you his top 10. You all let us know what you think. You know where to find me. Facebook, IG, Twitter, the official Champions Material YouTube channel. This video will definitely be on there. All right. We let you know what our best was. You let us know what your best is. And now, this is what I've been waiting for. A couple of weeks ago, man, and you know where I'm going. So I'm not going to do no big lead into this. You sent me a video that was absolute foolishness. The video audience out there that's going to be checking this out, when they look behind you, they know where I'm going because they see the fire behind you. StayCoppinKicks. This has been a project of yours for a long time. You back in the kitchen, you cooking, you cranking up. Let the people know, man, what's going on with StayCoppinKicks, where you at now, and let them know where you about to go, bro.
So we got some new videos coming out. I plan to drop 2 videos tomorrow. One will be the intro video that Shawn is referring to on its own. It'll be attached to the YouTube channel, just so if you go there, you'll see it. You can get a laugh, you can enjoy it. Hopefully you'll like it and check out some more content. Since tomorrow's Air Max Day, like I said, I plan on dropping an Air Max video talking a little bit about the history of the Air Max line, some of my favorite models, and what I'm doing this year for Air Max Day. So I plan on rolling out a new schedule pretty soon of the videos that will be coming out. Like I said, COVID slowed things down a little bit last year. So I'm really trying to get back focused and really get going with the videos. So hopefully you take a look, you enjoy, you subscribe, and we go on this train together, learn a little bit, having a little bit of fun, and just enjoying the content that we all love.
Absolutely, man. And I got to follow up with this. And this is not only just a refresher for me, but for the people out there that's going to be listening. It's very important that people not only see, we talked about this earlier, it's not just about talent. It's about, you know what I mean, the motivation to be the best, to stand out, to be different. I know what you all about when it comes to not just, you know, kicks that look good, but also, the how they're made and everything like that, the history of the kick game. But the people out there may not know. And for the people out there who may not know, what is the motivation behind what became Stay Coppin Kicks?
I just wanted to have wanted to try to just deliver a different voice. Right now, especially in sneaker YouTube, there's so many people who unfortunately they're disingenuous, they're unauthentic, they're hype beast. They just want something because it's the hype model, the newest thing. And I mean, if you like it, I love it. But I wanted just to have something for folks that share a love and a history like I do, where we remember waiting in line physically, looking at the catalogs. Like, we remember when you could just go in the store and buy a shoe.
Right.
They weren't selling out like the thing it is going on right now. So just trying to bring some of those stories. Like, again, like I said, I'm dropping this Air Max video tomorrow, and part of one thing I'm talking about is one of my favorite moments with my favorite Air Max, and why that's my favorite Air Max, and then why I'm bringing that to the new generation with my daughter. That's gonna be Air Max that I have for her. So just doing things like that, because I really want people to see beyond just what the hype is.
Wow.
Now, right now, things are selling out because resellers are sitting on everything, and it's really a frustrating time. So, just giving people something to look at, and so they can see the history of different stuff, and also how we kind of just made our own way, how we kind of we made stuff hot. We didn't need somebody to tell us what was hot. Now, that's not to say people didn't tell us what was hot, but we did our own things, like all across the country, different parts of the country did their own thing. Of course, they call Air Force Ones uptowns. That was what it was about in New York. And like down south, it was the Reebok Classic. So everywhere, on the West Coast, it was the Cortez. So different cats were doing different things, making different things hot, and over time, it became a kind of a melting pot. But even still, everybody had their own flavor, and they weren't afraid to experiment, to break out a brand or a style that people hadn't heard about,
Yeah.
So just trying to get back to the root of what the game was, where you saw something hot and you wanted to learn about it. It wasn't because you saw a celebrity wearing it. It's because you saw somebody in the street with a hard fit, So, and it didn't have to be a $200 shoe. It could be something that you could get for $30 or $40. And they put some dope laces in it, and they tied laces up a dope way, or they paired it with a nice shirt. It was all of that.
Don't let the hype behind the shoe determine for you if it's dope for you. Don't let somebody tell you if the shoe is dope for you. You decide that for yourself, man. And to that point,
Definitely.
what was the shoe for that dude Curtis that made you fall in love with the shoe game, man? What was the start?
What was the start? I'm trying to think if I'm close to the start.
Look at it.
Actually, yeah, I am pretty close. Let me see. So
Oh,
the
come on.
the SC trainer is probably the one that really got me into it. And part of this because it's like I wasn't even supposed to get this shoe. When I was a kid, and even now I got wide feet.
Yeah.
So I was supposed to be getting a pair of J's.
Okay.
And the ones that I was supposed to get, they ran narrow. So I couldn't get them. But then, you know, I love Bo Jackson, and my pops got me the SCs. And, you know, like to this day, I love everything about this shoe, from the way the toe box looks, the outsole, the design. Like a lot of people don't realize this is actually the shoe that the Simpsons based the assassin shoe that Ned Flanders was wearing on. So, you know, so this is the shoe.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is what really triggered my love. Like, you know, some of the earliest shoes, when I used to sit in the classroom drawing shoes, I'd be drawing SC trainers. And then of course I was drawing Jordans. And then, you know, I just kept doing it from there. But like, this is probably my first real love on a shoe that, you know, I used to take the toothbrush to.
Last two questions. First, if you can only pick one shoe to wear, and if you can only pick one shoe to hoop in on court, which of those two shoes and why? One to wear and one to hoop on court.
One to wear and one to hoop on.
Yeah.
Let me see. If I'm going where, I'm probably pulling out a pair of 11s. So let's just go. Let's just go Concord. To wear, because the 11 is probably the most important shoe in my life, especially my life right now. Because, you know, just like I talked about with my wife, I had pretty much every important event, I had a pair of 11s on with her. You know, down to the fact that before my daughter was born, the pair of shoes that we used to pray on every night over her belly was a pair of 11s for my daughter that she just now grew out of.
Wow.
To hooping, I'm probably gonna pick. This is gonna be. You probably gonna be like, this is a controversial choice. I'm gonna go LeBron 15.
Ooh. Okay.
The LeBron 15 is one of my favorite LeBrons.
Over the Soldiers, particularly the Soldier 10s.
Oh yeah, over the Soldiers. And, you know, I think the Soldier 11 is better than the Soldier 10s, the hooping.
Wow. Okay.
Like, I had a pair of Soldier 10s. I got rid of them. I wish I hadn't. But, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But, like, the 15s, I love the outsole. I love the way it feels. I love the battle knit, as they call it, the way it fits to your foot. Like, I think this is of the newer LeBrons, I think this one is the best design. Like, because, you know, like, they tried to continue this idea with the 16s, which I don't think did it as well. And then of course the 18s, and I don't think the 18s did it as well either. Because I'm trying to think. I know I got. Wait a minute. Because that's the 15, 16, 17. What is this? I'm like, wait a minute. I'm thinking I'm missing some LeBrons. I know I got. I know I got them somewhere. They probably in the other room.
All right.
But
Yeah. Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, that is authenticity. That's knowledge. And just like we were talking about with these NBA players, it's all about the love of the game. When you love something, it's easy to see it. When you're passionate about something, it's not work. Again, you put work into what it is that you want to accomplish, but when you got a love for it, it don't feel like work. And that's the key. This is a man that knows what he's talking about, always has and always will. I'm telling you right now, follow this man. He knows what he's talking about. Before we get up out of here, let the people know where they can find all things That Dude Curtis, and definitely all things Stay Coppin Kicks. Go.
You can follow me on social media. ThatDudeCurtis6 on Instagram, just ThatDudeCurtis on Twitter, and StayCoppinKicks on Instagram and Twitter. And of course, I think it's StayCoppinKicks on Facebook as well. So, like I said, just look out for new content dropping. So we're trying to do big things this year. Let's build this audience and let's get some enjoyment going.
Bang. That is That Dude Curtis, aka Curtis Harvey. I am Shawn Vaughn, and this is Champions Material. I will close this show as I do every show. Never forget, whoever you want to be and whatever you want to be, always be the champion of it. That's Champions Material. Stay tuned. We'll be back sooner than later with our next episode. But for now, myself, StayCoppinKicks, we're done.